Let me tell you something unsettling about the mind. It hates empty space. Give it 5 seconds of silence, and it will wallpaper that silence with hypotheticals. Autopsies of last Tuesday, imaginary arguments with people who are not even in the room. That hum you hear at 3 in the morning? For overthinkers, that is not a refrigerator. It is the brain rehearsing disasters that never auditioned. Overthinking isn't simply thinking a lot. It's thought turned into static. Analysis so dense it drowns decisions. Memory magnified until it becomes a microscope that burns holes through the past. To outsiders, overthinkers look cautious, even careful. Inside, it feels like living next to an airport of possibilities. Every what-if roaring overhead, landing, circling, and taking off again. A quick story. In 1841, the philosopher Søren Kierkegaard received a letter that questioned his character. Instead of replying once, he drafted response after response, pacing Copenhagen in loops, dissecting each sentence for hidden traps. He delayed, revised, worried. By the time he finally wrote back, the relationship he wanted to defend had already eroded, eaten not by the accusation, but by his own rehearsal of every possible reply. That is the physics of overthinking. Sometimes the orbit burns more fuel than the journey. Here is the psychological core. Overthinking is the mind's attempt to buy certainty with time. The currency is rumination. Reviewing, replaying, reframing. The purchase rarely clears. Certainty doesn't arrive. But the act of checking, the brief relief after another mental scan, rewards the cycle, like scratching a mosquito bite that keeps promising satisfaction and never delivers. Under the microscope, 2 forces often drive this loop: intolerance of uncertainty and hypervigilance. The brain's threat detector flags ambiguity as danger. The prefrontal cortex shows up with spreadsheets and flowcharts to negotiate with the alarm. The amygdala yells fire, the analyst in your head drafts a policy, and between them they build an office that stays open 24 hours a day. Overthinkers confuse analysis with agency. Problem-solving asks, "What can I do now?" Rumination asks, "What does it mean that I can't stop thinking about this?" Psychologists call that second question meta-worry. Worrying about worry. It turns the mind into both suspect and detective. You don't just think. You evaluate the morality, the sanity, and the optics of your thinking, then reopen the case because the verdict didn't feel definitive enough. Neurologically, the default mode network loves unfinished business. The Zeigarnik effect keeps open tabs in memory until a plan exists. However flimsy, overthinkers carry dozens of ghost windows, conversations to revisit, emails to perfect, futures to rehearse, each tugging attention with a tiny electric itch. Add prediction error minimization, the brain's drive to reduce surprise, and you get a system that would rather imagine 10 unlikely catastrophes than be blindsided by one. Why do some people overthink more than others? Perfectionism is one answer, but it's not just aesthetics of correctness. It's safety engineering. If the self-worth contract says, "No mistakes or you are not enough," then every choice becomes a courtroom. Overthinking is the drafting of 1,000 alibis for crimes that haven't happened. It is identity wearing a helmet to walk across the living room. Socially, overthinkers borrow megaphones for whispers. The spotlight effect convinces them everyone noticed the half-second pause. Mind-reading illusions insist that a friend's delayed reply equals resentment. The fundamental attribution error flips inward. Any hiccup in someone else's behavior becomes evidence of personal failure. The ordinary friction of human life gets misfiled under proof of catastrophe. Paradoxically, the search for the perfect move delays any move at all. Delay breeds pressure. Pressure breeds more analysis. Decisions become like airports during a storm. Planes can land, but departures keep circling. You pay in time taxes, conversations rehearsed and never had, projects drafted and never launched, evenings sacrificed to the courtroom inside your skull. At the heart of overthinking is a romance with control. If I can simulate every branch, I can steer the tree. The brain mistakes simulation for safety the way a treadmill imitates travel. Hours pass, sweat gathers, scenery doesn't move. Eventually you realize that you could have taken one imperfect step down an actual road. Memory participates with its own bias. Negative events carry heavier ink. Counterfactuals, imagined alternatives, add footnotes to every moment. What if I had left earlier? Spoken differently? Not trusted him? Not sent that joke? Overthinking curates a museum of almosts, and then hires you as the docent. You give tours to yourself and call it caution. But it's really grief wearing a clipboard. Culture supercharges the habit. The modern world treats uncertainty like a personal failure and worships optimization like a sacrament. Everything has metrics. Everything must be maximized. Overthinkers internalize this liturgy until life feels like a dashboard where every dial twitches toward red. Being human, which is already messy, starts to look like a bug report that needs filing by midnight. And yet here's the twist. Overthinkers are often extraordinary pattern detectors. They notice the micro-expression in a meeting. They reconstruct motives from crumbs. They can build entire architectures of possibility out of 3 stray comments and a silence. Given the right problem, that engine is genius. Given the wrong one, identity, love, safety, it becomes a furnace that eats its own fuel. Historically, some of our sharpest writers and scientists rode that edge of chaos attention. Mary Wollstonecraft's letters looping toward clarity, Darwin's notebooks tilting under questions. The difference wasn't absence of doubt. It was what they pointed it at. They built questions into instruments. Overthinkers today do the same when they turn the lens outward, toward puzzles that welcome relentless inspection, instead of inward, where the glass distorts. Spend time with an overthinker, and you'll witness the quiet rituals. Replaying a joke for moral defects, scanning a memory for hidden liabilities, appraising the tone of an email as if tone were a bomb that could be diffused by the right adjective. They are not indecisive for fun. They are historians, auditors, cartographers of danger. Their maps are masterpieces, until you remember that life refuses to be cartographed in that much detail. Here is the paradox I keep returning to. The same brain that imagines 12 outcomes can rarely imagine the 13th, grace. Overthinking is brilliant at drafting indictments and abysmal at drafting pardons. It can picture failure in cinematic detail and leave success sketched in pencil. The future becomes a courtroom where optimism has poor representation. This has costs measured in more than hours. Creativity gasps under constant cross-examination. Relationships buckle if every silence becomes a thesis. Sleep fragments when the inner stenographer refuses to stop typing. The body joins the drama. Elevated heart rate here, a stomach knot there, a jaw working overnight as if chewing through wire. The mind proposes scenarios. The body pays the invoice. At some point, even the overthinker notices the absurdity. That life keeps happening while their internal committee debates the minutes. Not as a self-help tip, but as a simple observation about physics. Moments expire. The conversation moves on. The train leaves. The tide comes in whether or not you solved it on paper. And there's a peculiar relief in admitting that reality is not waiting for a perfect plan. So if you recognize the architecture I've described, the endless rehearsal, the courtroom at dawn, the maps with too many borders, know this isn't a defect of intelligence but a style of survival sharpened by uncertainty and fed by modern noise. Overthinkers are not broken, they are overclocked. They generate meaning at a rate most minds reserve for emergencies. Sometimes it saves them. Often it just sets the museum lights blazing at midnight when the exhibits need darkness to breathe. Listen to the grammar of an overthinker, and you'll hear conditional verbs everywhere. maybe, perhaps, unless. They speak in parentheses, stacking disclaimers like sandbags against a storm that may not come. Even their victories arrive with footnotes. Good news. But what about the side effects? A compliment, but what was left unsaid. This is not cynicism, so much as accounting. The mind keeps double entry books, debits of risk, credits of possibility, and refuses to close the ledger at night. It believes that one more calculation will finally balance the page. It rarely does. New numbers appear under the door like unsolicited mail. Many overthinkers learn the habit young. In unpredictable homes, forecasting wasn't neurosis. It was navigation. If the mood at the door decided the evening, you became a meteorologist of faces. If praise and punishment swapped places without warning, you learned to read the air for pressure changes. The skill survived long after the weather changed. Later, school rewarded it. Anticipate the question, cover every angle, defend every claim. Work adored it. Risk assessments, contingency plans, pre-mortems, until finally the tool started using the hand that held it. The same vigilance that once kept you safe now keeps you tired, alert for storms that never arrive. And the forecast keeps repeating, caution. If you don't subscribe, you may never see us again. Make sure to like and follow for more content like this.